Hey everybody, Eric in the garden. Today we're going to do a video on the weeds in the garden. If you watched us over the last couple months, this is the first year I've ever done a pre-emergent. Remind yourself a pre-emergent is something you put down to prevent future weeds. It won't take care of the weeds you already have. It won't be 100% effective, but in combination with a little bit of hand pulling and mulching, you should have dramatically less weeds going through the rest of the growing season. So first application was in mid-February, did a second application in late March, and by and large the garden is looking really good. In addition, after that, I guess it was the second application, we did add some mulch. Actually did the mulch first and then we reapplied the second application. So the whole point is to just do a little bit of a follow-up. Weeds were easily one of my biggest chores in the garden. Next to spraying, what you have to do, you can't really automate that. Weeds were definitely one of the bigger issues we had in the garden. And on the whole, everything looks good. If you just do a quick glance at the garden, it doesn't look like a lot of weeds. Everything's working out well. And that is true. The pre-emergent is doing what it's supposed to, preventing the majority of the weeds from popping up. In addition, that mulch is helping as well. And I'm telling you, I've got 7 beds and they took at least an hour to hand pull per bed. And usually I'd have to do it twice during the season. That's probably being conservative. I would have my headphones on listening to some music and I didn't mind it too much, but when I started adding up the hours, it was quite a bit. So I've noticed a few things. Pre-emergent again is not 100% effective, so we do have some weeds now and then. And what I do for this, a lot of people, you hear a lot of health concerns with Roundup. A lot of that is in our food itself, but as far as wearing PPE, I always have my gloves on, and I have a backpack sprayer that I mix with a sticker, a spreader sticker, which allows it to coat the leaves better, and the Roundup, and I just have that in a backpack sprayer, and once every couple weeks I just go around in the garden and I'll spray these weeds. And you'll see when I'm doing that, I'm nowhere near the bushes. I've had some bad experiences before. Roses are very susceptible to Roundup, very similar to tomatoes. So you don't want to get this stuff anywhere near these roses. If they just hint at Roundup in the garden, they will die, and the herbicide damage will look very similar to rose rosette. So if I see any weeds that are far away from the rose, I'll hit it. And again, notice that the arm, you can't see it, but I've got a backpack sprayer on. It's very long, so I'm keeping it away from my body, and I'm getting right down toward the weed itself. So very little risk that this is going to blow onto the rose bush. The second thing I want to point out, you can probably tell it from the trees and the bushes, it is just about calm as calm can get. I do not spray at all when there's any hint of wind. I don't want to take any chance. Even though I'm right down by the ground itself and I'm being as safe as I can, I don't want any spray drift on the roses. And then the other thing, you'll notice I do have some weeds that are closer to the rose bush itself. So I'll kind of come back in here. Here's an example right here by Jewel Grace. I'll use that as a pointer. There's a weed right there. I am not going to spray those. So any that are close to the rose itself, down by the bud union, I'll just do a hand pull on that. And you can see in the garden, all these wet spots in the mulch are where we had just a tiny bit of weeds coming up. For the most part, some of the beds don't have anything. So we've been looking good. I've noticed the pre-emergent is doing its job. I'm not sure if it's listed, but it looks, I could be wrong. I'm not an expert on weeds, but I have a little bit of this grassy weed coming up. I think that's nutsedge, and it may not be preventing that. So again, a pre-emergent's job is to prevent the majority of the weeds coming up. It's not going to do them all. And to re-emphasize, I've got some weeds right by the bud union there of Dublin. I'm not going to spray those because I don't want to have any Roundup damage. So in summary, again, weed prevention is looking good. We're doing a combination of the pre-emergent, mulch, and then every couple weeks we take a tour in the garden, and if I see any activity of weeds that's well away from the bush itself, I just hit it. So here's one that I missed. You can probably just barely see them, but I think this is a little bit of that nutsedge, and I'll just spray it, give it a good coating, and again, I'm well away from the rose bush itself. And this probably took me maybe 10 minutes tops to hit the whole garden. So contrast that with hours and hours of weeding. I'm quite happy. We are in, what is it, middle of April right now, and things are looking good. The real test will be as we get into May and we get some more warmth, then we'll see what's happening. When I leave you, I do want to show you what's happening with this Yolande de Aragon. It's an old garden rose. Look at all these buds. So in the next couple days to a week, we're going to have a lot of blooms here. The garden is looking really, really good. It's a very fragrant bush. You can see a lot of buds on Alina. That's a healthy yellow rose, one of the better garden roses in terms of the disease susceptibility. And I'll last leave you with this. I wish you could smell it. This is probably one of my favorite roses. That is Mr. Lincoln. Nice red, grows really well, and is quite fragrant. So that's it. Update from the garden. Weeds are looking good in mid-April. We'll check back as we get into May, June, and July, and we'll see how good it's doing. I'll do an update on this St. Patrick that didn't make it. I do like to show what doesn't make it in the garden, because you may see all these pretty roses and think that this is, you know, that I have it easy, and that's not the case. We lost another St. Patrick over this winter, and it was one of the most mild winters we've ever had. So roses still can be a challenge for all of us. I'll either replace it or put something else new there. Hope everyone's doing well. Have a great day.